Family, what's good with you? It's your boy Milky Way J. Welcome back to another banger, and we got another One Piece Ohara theory reaction, man. And this one is about who is on Joyboy's crew. Ohara thinks he got 10 solid people that could potentially have been on Joyboy's crew. And I'm not gonna lie, he might have hit the nail on the head for some of these points. Y'all stay tuned. Like the video if y'all like the video. Comment down below how y'all feel. Subscribe to the channel if y'all are new. On the Glyph Podcast, y'all One Piece fans here, right? On the Glyph Podcast, live every Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The VOD's gonna be up, and the audio version will be out on every platform every week on Monday, 5 in the morning. Y'all make sure y'all stay tuned for that as well, on my One Piece fans. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Who's on Joyboy's crew? Let's get into it. Spread love to the people that mean most of y'all, and I'll catch y'all in there. Who was on Joyboy's crew? I think he meant to say on.
Next to his legendary treasure, Joyboy and the Ancient Kingdom are the single biggest mystery in all of One Piece, and honestly, we still don't know all that much about that lost part of history or who actually lived in it. But is that actually true? I don't think so, because it turns out that we know a whole lot more about it than you might think. To be precise, I think we know the identities of at least 10 potential members of Joyboy's own crew and the commanders of his grand fleet. Which of course raises one really big question: how do we even know that Joyboy had a crew to begin with? So here's what we do know for a fact about Joyboy. He was alive during the Void Century, that's a given, as the poneglyphs themselves are telling his story. We have Imu's very sour reaction to his name, and Kaido and King's remarks about Joyboy's history during Wano. After all, even Roger makes the very specific remark in chapter 967 that he wished that he could live during the time of Joyboy after arriving on Laugh Tale. And based on all of that, I think it's fairly reasonable to assume that Joyboy therefore lived during the Void Century. And as you'll find out during this video, Roger is actually kind of the missing link between Joyboy and the new Joyboy, Luffy, and all the three of them have a lot of parallels that make some of Joyboy's crew really, really obvious if you really think about it. And speaking of Luffy, since Zunisha and the giant robot on Egghead that was waking up speaking and acknowledging Luffy as the new Joyboy, it's pretty fair to say, I think, that Joyboy either had the Nika fruit or that the Sun God Nika and Joyboy are simply one and the same person. Otherwise, why else would Zunisha say that Joyboy has returned, or why would the robot react to Luffy's drum-like heartbeat when Luffy shifts into his awakened form Gear 5? But more interestingly, some of the most powerful and ancient countries in the One Piece world also all have ties to Joyboy and the Ancient Kingdom as well. As you well know, the path to Laugh Tale throughout the Grand Line is littered with quite unique clans, groups, and islands hidden off from the rest of the world. And all of them seem to share one big connection to the mythical Sun God Nika, Joyboy, or even both. And we do know that for a fact thanks to the poneglyphs hidden in and protected by many of these nations. The poneglyphs, of course, are these unbreakable stones written in an ancient language that detail the history of the Void Century, Joyboy, and the road to Laugh Tale, the final island where the One Piece was hidden by, you guessed it, none other than Joyboy himself, not Roger. Again, we actually do know that because Roger addresses Joyboy personally by name when finding Laugh Tale, as you can see in this panel right here. On top of just the poneglyphs though, there's also this very mysterious symbol right here that we first see in Alabasta, the very first island where we actually learn about the poneglyphs as well. It's a big circle with 8 orbs surrounding it, and it pops up in a lot of very interesting places. The Kozuki crest on Wano, the flag of Alabasta, the symbol of the Fishman Sun Pirates, inside the church on Kuma's home island, in Shandora, and maybe even in other places like here on the arm of this Tontada. And so this shared symbol shows a great and common tie in between several groups and races, all from different islands, all scattered around the world. In other words, the only way that they could all be tied in is if someone or something was spreading their influence or word around all these different places around the globe. And now I'm not saying that Joyboy is some sort of One Piece Jesus, but just that, well, he kind of is One Piece Jesus if you think about it, and just instead of his disciples, he probably had a very large crew. And you'll see that in just a second, but let's start with the one person we 100% know confirmed is connected to Joyboy, the ancient queen of Alabasta, Nefertari D. Lily, the very first most likely member of Joyboy's crew. And how am I so certain? Well, more than anything else in the series, Imu made that very clear. The very first time we ever actually hear more than a short sentence from Imu is talking about Lily to King Cobra of Alabasta, basically acknowledging the fact that Lily made a grave mistake or sin that led to the poneglyphs being released into the rest of the world. Imu even suggests that despite thinking it may have been an accident, Lily could very well have planned for this. And of course the fact that the kingdom of Alabasta, her kingdom, had been secretly guarding a poneglyph to this day seems to suggest that it was a very intentional act against Imu and the remaining 19 kingdoms. And this of course is only further strengthened by Lily's refusal to actually join the Celestial Dragons up in Marijua, being the only one of the 20 original founders to not head up to the Holy City. All of these acts and choices are the actions of someone who did not agree with Imu and ended up secretly siding with Joyboy in the Great War. And of course, this once again also proves that Joyboy is in some way 100% connected to the Ancient Kingdom. And since Lily was also part of these 20 original kingdoms, and we know that their enemy was the Ancient Kingdom, it's very clear that Joyboy would have to have been part of, or maybe even be the leader of that Ancient Kingdom. But regardless of just that, what we do know is that Lily's mistake led to the direct release of the poneglyphs into the rest of the world, but it doesn't answer one really big question, which is who actually created them in the first place. Luckily, we do know that for a fact as well, because it's someone that both Oden and his father Kozuki Sukiyaki confirmed together. And that's because it was their ancestors, the Kozuki clan during the Ancient Kingdom, and very possibly the second member of Joyboy's crew. You see, it's basically confirmed by Sukiyaki that the Kozuki are the ones who originally made the poneglyphs, which is why Oden could actually decipher them for Roger, because it was passed down through their family generations. Not to mention that Sukiyaki reveals that there is some secret that has been passed down through the Kozuki clan, one that he couldn't even tell Robin about when they finally met. And this secret actually seemed to be what caused Oden to want to break down the walls of Wano, and I do think that it's got something to do with the downfall of Joyboy. It also helps, of course, that so much of ancient Wano, the one hidden below the sea level, has connections to the Void Century as well, being the home to Pluton, one of the other ancient weapons that we know the Ancient Kingdom had, which we've also discovered by now that Joyboy very likely used to fight against Imu as well. And Pluton being hidden in Wano may also suggest that it was the home territory of Joyboy to begin with as well. And now this of course would also help explain why Kaido decided to set up his home territory in Wano as well.
He's cooking right now. I'm not gonna lie, I've just been letting him cook. I've been trying to follow along as closely as I can and try and put these pieces together. But I'm not gonna lie, he's making some sense here. I'm just trying to think on who all he's gonna, because he said 10. I dive pretty deep into One Piece and I don't know if I can, like, I'm just, wow. Y'all let me know, timestamp it. Y'all feel like at this point y'all have some good guesses?
Why Luffy finally awoke Year 5 in this country. But not only that, it would also
maybe I'm just a casual
separation from the world government, as it would be the last still remaining bastion of the Ancient Kingdom.
It's a theory at the end of the day. I'm trolling.
So at the very least, it's very likely that someone from Wano, like a Kozuki clan member, was actually part of the crew. But what if I told you that the Kozuki clan may technically even have had 2 members on Joyboy's crew? And that's because I believe that Kozuki Toki, Oden's wife, was also connected to Joyboy. For starters, despite being so young during Oden's flashback, Toki is really 800 years old. This is of course due to her unique devil fruit, the conveniently named Toki Toki no Mi, aka the Time fruit, and its absolutely mind-bending ability that allows her to send herself and others into the future. And I mean as far into the future as she wants to. That's because she literally shows up 20 years before the story, when we do know that she actually started in the Void Century. And so the question here is, why travel so far ahead. And I do think that Joyboy may be the reason here. I mean, let's look at it objectively. We do know that Toki's got a devil fruit that lets her go forward in time. Lily created and spread the poneglyphs, which are all written in an ancient language that can only be read by very specific people. And who created them? The Kozuki family from Wano. And so I think it's now time for a little bit of theorizing. If Lily's choice to spread the poneglyphs was planned from the beginning and Toki was connected to Joyboy and the crew, then maybe her jumping into the future was actually to fulfill Joyboy's plans that are laid out written on the poneglyphs. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that Toki had some sort of crazy master plan going into the future, marry a Kozuki, get them to Laugh Tale, and then have kids that would someday change the future. But I'm also not saying that she couldn't have done exactly that, making her kind of a manipulative genius. So let's think about this straight. Toki just happens to show up.
If this is true, then Toki's role in the story is just ridiculous. Like, her power, I mean, obviously she has a very OP power. Like, come on now, she can go at any point she wants in the future. It's a pretty OP power, but be able to go and manipulate major events in the timeline, wow. You feel me?
The perfect time to go with the crew to Fishman Island, where it's explained to them that Shirahoshi's birth is going to be incredibly important to both Roger's crew and King Neptune, and then Toki gives birth to her own 2 children, who she then sends even further into the future to another different point in time, which again just so happens to line up perfectly with the point in time that Roger finds out on Laugh Tale that the world will finally change. And I hear you, Toki technically never went to Laugh Tale, so she couldn't really know what's written on the last poneglyph, but that's kind of wrong. I mean, she absolutely could know what's written there. After all, she is literally from the Void Century, which to me seems to at least be a few points towards Toki knowing a lot more than she has ever told.
I was saying from the clans. In fact,
it would perfectly explain why she was very okay with Odin going with Roger to complete the journey. That's of course because Roger needed Odin to be able to read the final poneglyph that would explain everything on Laugh Tale. But even if you think that that's way too high brain for Toki, take all of the specifics out of what I just said and strip it down to the bare bones and facts. The idea is that Toki went to the future and planned to meet a modern Kozuki clan member. That way she could help him connect the knowledge passed down through the Kozuki clan to the poneglyphs. After all, we do know that her original plan was to get to Wano the moment that she landed in the modern era, which would make a lot of sense if she was just looking for a modern Kozuki member. And then basically it just so happened that she also fell in love in the process. In other words, Toki very much could have been on Joyboy's crew as well. But for now, let's pivot from Wano over to the other big territory who worships the sun.
I don't know if I'm with it.
And more specifically, Shandora, as it is another place that we do know is very clearly tied to Joyboy and the Ancient Kingdom. Now, we do know this primarily from their poneglyph and the chamber built to protect it, but also the fact that it was seemingly a part of the Great War between the 20 kingdoms and the Ancient Kingdom as well. That war devastating Shandora, or at least that was assumed until it was knocked up into the sky by the knock-up stream. And while we don't know 100% for a fact that they actually fought alongside the Ancient Kingdom, we do know that thanks to the poneglyph they protect and it pointing to Poseidon in Fishman Island, a Shandoran warrior, or more likely even a leader of Shandora, was definitely a member of Joyboy's crew as well. And of course, speaking of Fishman Island, it is also one of the more prominent races that have connections to Joyboy as well. This of course also is once again thanks to Odin's flashback and the Fishman Island arc that not one but 2 poneglyphs have resided in Fishman Islands. And that very conveniently once again Roger showed up just in time for the prophecy of Shirahoshi, the reincarnation of Poseidon, an ancient weapon of the Ancient Kingdom who was born during that time as well. Once again, we do know for a fact definitely that Joyboy did have some sort of connection to the old Poseidon and the Fishmen, as not only was one of those poneglyphs a great apology letter to his failure to uphold his end of a deal, but also it was stated on the poneglyph in Shandora that Poseidon would be reborn in Fishman Island. worlds. Plus, we do know that Joyboy and Poseidon are somehow connected to the Sea Kings, something which is confirmed in chapter 968 when they discuss the return of their kings and the birth of someone that they've been waiting for to be born from a distant land. And while it's never been officially confirmed that that is Luffy, the prophecy of Luffy destroying Fishman Island during the very same arc seems to build a very strong connection in that direction as well. Not to mention that since Poseidon's power is controlling the Sea Kings and Poseidon is the mythical ruler of the ocean, history is kind of repeating itself, meaning that Joyboy was connected to the original Poseidon just the way that Luffy is now to Shirahoshi. And so in a nutshell, Joyboy is connected to the ancient kingdom. The ancient kingdom,
you know, Oda liked to cook with the parallels.
Used the ancient weapons to fight against the 20 kingdoms, at least that's very likely, and Poseidon controls the Sea Kings. And since the one thing connecting all of them together is the voice of all things, as seen by Roger and Odin during their adventures listening to the Sea King, I think it's more than safe to say that the original Poseidon was also a member of Joyboy's crew representing the Fishmen. But if you thought that the Fishmen were the only tragically oppressed race allied with Joyboy, well, just wait, because the Buccaneer race has the most tragic connection to our Void Century mystery man yet. That's because we learned a solid bit about Joyboy's connection to that race from Kuma's flashback, where not only do we learn that he is a Buccaneer that worships the sun god Nika, but also once again we do see that very same 8-pointed sun set up in his church as well. Now I think that by now we've more than established that in some way Nika and Joyboy are heavily connected. But again, are they the same person, or was Joyboy just another user of the Nika fruit like Luffy seems to be? I do personally think that they actually were the same person, and that is all thanks to that pesky devil Imu and the Gorosei. You see, the world government really wants...
I could have sworn in the earlier video that he said they were two different people. I don't know how I'm feeling about this. Let's keep it rocking.
The Buccaneers to suffer and go extinct, using them as targets in the most dangerous game in their hunting events like on God Valley. And while it hasn't been really confirmed, the ties between Nika and Joyboy and then Nika and the Buccaneers do lead me to believe that the Buccaneers have been suffering due to the conflict between Joyboy and Imu, which again not only connects them to Joyboy but also reinforces the idea that the Warrior of Liberation Nika and Joyboy are one and the same person. After all, if all of the races who were affiliated with Joyboy are being oppressed, then it seems to make sense that their leaders were devout followers of Joyboy as well, which, you guessed it, all points to a Buccaneer clan member also being part of Joyboy's crew, potentially even one of Kuma's ancestors. And so I think it's only right now to switch over to our next nearly extinct race. It's time to talk about the Lunarians, another race with the strongest of ties to Joyboy out of maybe all of them yet. Because unlike a lot of races who do worship a sun god, Warrior of Liberation, and or Nika, the Lunarians are heavily connected directly to Joyboy by name himself. Why is that? Well, it's all thanks to Kaido, the king of the beast, because we do learn a whole lot about the Void Century during Wano and thanks to Kaido, but without any question, his biggest contribution to lore piece is introducing us to the last remaining Lunarian king. In case you don't know, we do learn during Wano that the Lunarians are another ancient race of sky people that are quite similar to the Buccaneers, as they are on the verge of actual extinction. Once again, a direct result of Imu and the world government. During King's flashback, we found out that Kaido recruited him specifically because of his powers,
they take him down.
Also because of his quite unique connection to Joyboy. Kaido referring to himself as the person that the Lunarians are waiting on. And while it's not technically confirmed that it was Joyboy, Kaido constantly remarks that he's been waiting for Joyboy, the fact that he doesn't think Luffy is Joyboy after defeating him, and during his flashback we do see that he used to possibly think he was the reincarnation of Joyboy himself. In fact, it's very likely also why Kaido sticks around in Wano to begin with, as he knew Joyboy, aka later Luffy, was bound to return right here. But the actual reason why I'm so certain that there was a Lunarian on Joyboy's crew as well, and possibly even his first mate, is the parallels it draws between Joyboy and his commander, Kaido and King, as well as Luffy and Zoro. Here's what is implied based on what we know. Kaido wanted to be Joyboy, and he took a Lunarian as his first mate. Then to continue this trend, we we do know that Luffy is actually the second coming of Joyboy, and so his right hand would also need to match what Kaido seems to know about Joyboy as well. And well, not only did Zoro defeat King, but he also proclaimed himself the King of Hell in the process. And of course, arguably, the most infamous King of Hell is Lucifer. You know, the fallen angel, the guy depicted with black burned wings and fallen from the top of the world. Also, not to mention, is yet another biblical connection between Joyboy, Emu, and the Holy Land, which just so happens to be right now where the Lunarians' kingdom used to be before it was wiped out. And so if Kaido picked King as his right hand and Luffy also picked a fallen angel in the form of Zoro, then it would just make sense that Joyboy had a Lunarian as his first mate as well. And that of course would help explain why Kaido not only knew that King was Lunarian, but why he brought him along for his journey as well. But that's actually not all that we found out about Joyboy and his crew from the Lunarians, because we also find out during Enel's cover story some truly crazy things about the Lunarians as well. As you probably know, Slim Shady over here has decided to go to the moon, and when he did, he found a line of ancient mechanical robots that lay dormant in a hidden city. A facility that had carvings of the sky races all over it, detailing their story. Now, sure, the moon and the sun are kind of polar opposites, and it does raise the whole thematic sun god moon race kind of parallel, but that's just an additional tie-in here. What we do know is that the ancient kingdom was incredibly technologically advanced. That's something we found out during the Egghead Island arc from Vegapunk. And thanks to Enel's cover story, we do know that the Lunarians, or at least the other sky races, had some part in creating some of the advanced ancient technology of the ancient kingdom, which would actually tie all these automatons and the sky races once again to Joyboy. Why is that? Well, it's thanks to this giant robot right here on Egghead Island. A robot that just happens to respond to Luffy's Joyboy heartbeats. And you know what that robot said when he finally woke up? Yes, it can speak. It said, "I'm sorry, Joyboy," which makes yet another rock solid addition to Joyboy's crew right here.
Was a given.
This ancient robot of the past is just huge in general for starters, but I'll get into that shortly. More importantly right now, it also climbed the red line and attacked Marijoa 200 years ago. Something that, while not confirmed, does seem to also imply that Emu's destruction of the ancient kingdom was a very targeted attack on Joyboy and his comrades. After all, the statement, "I'm sorry, Joyboy," could be taken two ways, both of which do seem to confirm a very similar occurrence. One, if you assume the apology is for betraying Joyboy, then the robot seems to reinforce the idea that Joyboy's crew betrayed him at some point, which then would make guilt the main reason this robot attacked Marijoa. If the robot was part of this betrayal, then maybe the attack on the Holy Land 200 years ago was some sort of attempt of retribution. But on the other hand, what also could be the case is a very classic revenge story. So let's look at the opposite angle. The robot may actually be apologizing for being unable to stop Emu's plans of betraying Joyboy, and the attack on the Celestial Dragons would be an attempt at getting revenge for its fallen captain.
I'm not saying, oh, I believe it. I'm saying, oh, like, okay, that's where he's getting at. It's good though. This is good.
Really, either way you cut it, all angles of speculation really point to this robot being heavily tied and related to Joyboy.
No, that's
and
a fact.
Just a point to bring up here, it also seems to parallel Kuma's attack on the Red Line in chapter 1092. So who knows, maybe the Iron Giant is a similar cyborg buccaneer just like Kuma, or potentially seeing as it was the base for the Vega Force 1, something that's pretty close to the Frankie Shogun slash General Frankie. The Iron Giant is actually just a huge mech suit of armor for another crew member. We'll get to that, but no matter how you really cut it, the Iron Giant is somehow a crew member of Joyboy's, in whatever shape or form that might turn out to be the case. And now that we've covered the Iron Giant, I do want to go back to Lily for just one moment, because I think that her mistake really helps point to the final three members I'm nearly certain were part of Joyboy's crew as well. Alright, let's get back to the hard facts and talk about the elephant in the room. I guess it's more accurate to say the giant elephant in the room, Zunisha. Now technically, Zunisha is a Natami Norida elephant, a species with gigantic legs that stretch all the way down to the ocean floor. I mean, this dude is literally 35 kilometers kilometers tall. That is absolutely massive. Not to mention he's got
how
a
tall that
lifespan
is.
of over 1,000 years. Here's what we know. Zunisha carries the entire civilization of Zou on his back, which is the homeland of the Minks. Which of course also means that the Minks are yet another allied nation for Joyboy. After all, if they have used Zunisha for protection from the rest of the world for all these years, and also were tasked protecting a road poneglyph, it's very unlikely
Poneglyph podcast, y'all tap in every Sunday.
Wanders the ocean because originally he was punished back during the Void Century. He committed some sort of mysterious grave crime which was somehow connected to Joyboy and the Ancient Kingdom falling. And so he 100% knew the original Joyboy, since he is the character that confirms to us, the audience, that Luffy is the new Joyboy. That's because for Zunisha to recognize the drums of liberation and be the one who has to tear down the walls of Wano, freeing Pluton, Zunisha definitely has some direct tie to Joyboy personally, because these are all things, sounds, and ideas that are directly related to the Warrior of Liberation. Not to mention he's carrying a road poneglyph, something only seen in places tied to ancient weapons and Joyboy. Which interestingly enough also implies that wherever Luffy
make a little sense with this one,
poneglyph will also be the location where he learns about the location of the final ancient weapon, Uranus. And I think it's actually very safe to say that due to his lifespan, his knowledge, and the fact that he's literally carrying a road poneglyph, Zunisha was also part of Joyboy's crew / team. And I'll say it, I do think that Zunisha probably wasn't just a member, it was their ship. I mean he's able to literally cross between islands with his massive footsteps, not to mention that with his size and power, he could carry a whole kingdom to wherever they wanted to go. Remember the ancient city that the Minks live in. Or maybe, just maybe, he was a little cute guy like Chopper, a pint-sized elephant buddy for Joyboy, or a normal-sized elephant compared to a giant Joyboy. That's right, because I think Joyboy himself was a giant. Now you might know that this is actually a fairly common theory, because weirdly enough, many characters and objects surrounding Joyboy are insanely huge. For example, there's this giant straw hat in Malaysia, or the fact that the poneglyphs are quite massive as well. Not to mention that Gear 3rd and Gear 5th are all about Luffy becoming a giant, and this is something that a Zone Fruit would do if it was trying to turn Luffy back into his full or hybrid Nika form. There's also the fact that Elbaf, the home of the giants, is super religious and also focuses on the sun god Nika. Giants like Dory and Broggy name their attacks after the sun, and they also recognize Luffy himself as the sun gods. Really, it makes sense that this ancient race of giants would know this.
And if you're caught up in the manga, that means I'm giving y'all time to leave. If y'all not caught up in the manga or not leave, just skip like a minute. Loki also says something about the sun god as well. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not going
Sun God, if Joyboy himself was a giant as well. And all of that is why I'm pretty sure that Joyboy himself was the giant, or at the very least there was another crew member that was a giant with him as well. But there is yet another crew member to go over, and according to Luffy, it may just be the most important one on any crew. We're of course talking about a crew's musician. That's because Luffy says at the beginning of the story, and to Brook, that he's always wanted a musician on his crew, and if he's the reincarnation of Joyboy, that means Joyboy very much likely would have felt the same way. So who could that be then? Who was a legendary ancient musician in the One Piece world? Well, Bink, of course. For starters, we do know that Bink's Sake is the most important song in One Piece. Shanks and Rob.
I'm gonna say real quick, I seen a little theory that people thought Joyboy is Binks, but I don't know. I don't really want to dive into it because that's completely derailing this video, but I'll probably talk about it on the Poneglyph podcast, so y'all tap into that. And maybe y'all hear the theory and we'll chop it up about that. We'll be live, so y'all can tap in live and give me your feedback.
I love this song, and it's the song that connects the past with the present. But I would take it even one step further. I think that literally means the ancient past and the present. Because Bink Sake literally connects all the great pirate crews such as Joyboy, Roger, Shanks, and Luffy, and we know that Roger's crew sings it all the way to Laugh Tale, and Shanks' crew sings it at the start of the series. Not to mention it's what Brook sings to Laboon and what he sings when we first meet him in the story. Because you see, there's a really interesting connection between the island whales like Laboon Laboon and Bing Sake. Brook makes that very obvious. After all, Laboon loves that song more than anything in the world, but not only that, island whales and giant whales in general have a very important and interesting connection to Laugh Tale and the Void Century. Whales always appear whenever Laugh Tale is mentioned. Take this exact moment from chapter 967 where Roger and Odin both describe an immense pressure given off by the whale tree on Zoe. The Straw Hats entering the Grand Line and learning about Laugh Tale for the first time from Crocus. There's Laboon. The Straw Hats making it into the New World talking about Laugh Tale. There is a pod of whales. Not to mention that the lyrics of Bing Sake seem to describe how the ancient kingdom fell. There is a lot of theories around this song. Take this line from the song, for instance, quote, "Now comes a storm through the far off sky. Now the waves are dancing. Beat upon the drums. If you lose your nerve, this breath could be your last. But if you just hold on, the morning sun will rise." In other words, that sounds very much like the fall of Joyboy and his crew, if you ask me, and it's also talking about the amount of time that it will take for the new
talked about
sun
this
god to
a little
rise,
bit in one of the
aka
past
Luffy.
theories.
And I think it's not too much of a reach to say that if Bing was a real person, he was most likely Joyboy's musician. So that's technically 10 characters right there. Have we cracked it, right? Well, not exactly, because as I mentioned earlier, I don't think Zanisha was an actual crew member. I think he was either part of an ancient weapon or their ship, which means there is actually one spot left on the crew, and since we've been putting him off for way too long, it is finally time to talk about none other than the mighty Emu, the secret ruler of the world for the last 800 years. And I hope it's become glaringly obvious throughout this video that Emu knew Joyboy. And yes, I even believe it's possible that Emu also used to be a member of Joyboy's crew. After all, Emu and potentially even the Gorosei seem to be immortal, potentially having lived even during the Void Century as well. So how and what exactly did Emu do? Because I mean, defeating a kingdom as powerful as the ancient kingdom with its powerful races and technology and ancient weapons would be incredibly difficult. Well, except if there was a big betrayal. A secret backstabbing of Joyboy by his commanders, the original 20 kings of the 20 kingdoms, such as the original founders of the Dokihot family, the Figureland family, or the 5 Elders families, with Emu leading the charge. Now, this is of course speculation, but I do think that the 20 kingdoms only became kingdoms after the Void Century, and that all the kings of each kingdom were part of his original fleet. And Emu then convinced them to backstab and betray Joyboy to gain power themselves, though that is of course a theory for a whole other video. What's important here is that Joyboy's crew was full of absolute powerhouses, but where would they rank among the 24 strongest characters?
That one was interesting. There were some points in that, some people where I'm like, okay, I can agree with. Some I'm just like, I don't really see the connection. With that being said, I think it was a good theory all in all. I enjoyed it. He was a little broad with some, which that's all he can do. We don't know much about Joyboy as is. This is a theory at the end of the day, and I think it was a good one. Ohara has been coming with some real good theories. I appreciate y'all for tapping in. Make sure y'all like the video if y'all like the video. Comment down below how y'all felt about the theory and if y'all want to see me react to any more. And subscribe to the channel if y'all are new and y'all want to see more heat. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. Only Good Podcast, live every Sunday. You can also catch us on all podcast platforms every Monday. We post the audio version and the VOD will be up on YouTube. So go tap in. We'll be in the description as well. And I love y'all. Catch y'all on the next one. This is your boy Monkey Way J, and I'm out of here. Y'all be good.